In 2014, in search of a lifestyle that was closer to nature, we left our busy life in the southeast of England and moved to a remote part of Scotland. Here, our lives could be more in harmony with the flow of the seasons. This is our story. As the sun comes over the horizon, I've been sitting here in the pre-dawn light. I've made myself a cup of tea, and the only sounds that I can hear is the cry of the occasional gull and the restless lapping of the waves. Autumn Equinox, the time when the day length and night length are equal. The time between sunrise and sunset equals the time between sunset and sunrise. A time of balance. The world is in balance. Sitting here in the peace of the dawn light, in this moment my life feels in balance. So finding that balance in life, that's difficult, isn't it? You know, we have our responsibilities, we have jobs, we have families. And where I find that balance is out in nature, out in what is surrounding me now. I'm fortunate to live somewhere that is particularly beautiful. And when you sit out, whether it's in a city park or in the wilds like I am, or even in your garden or on a balcony, and just sit there and just let everything settle. Let everything settle. And you start to see patterns, you see patterns in your mind. And what I've seen recently is patterns in nature. Even with this equinox, seeing the pattern that has, and what I'm referring to is the speed at which the day length changes. Where I live, I'm 56 degrees 40 seconds north of the equator. I'm on a latitude with the north of Denmark and Newfoundland on the other side of the Atlantic. In the midwinter solstice, we get under 7 hours of daylight. And in the summer, we get close to 18 hours between sunrise and sunset. Living close to nature and close to the sea, I see that on a daily basis in terms of the rise and fall of the tides. And I spent a number of years sea kayaking, and I learnt to use the tides, because a sea kayak is a very seaworthy craft if you're skillful, and you use the tides and the flow of the tides to aid your journeys. And we work on something called the rule of twelfths. And by using local tidal information, we can calculate the speed and direction of the tide at any time of the day. And working with the rule of twelfths, what we see is that from low water, from the low tide, it doesn't immediately go to, say, 4 knots. It gradually starts to climb. And at mid-tide, it's at full flow. So if the tidal streams are at 4 knots, and the moon, depending on the phases of the moon, then you can calculate that, you know that is the speed of the tide and the direction of the tide. And then as it comes up to high tide, it tails off, it starts to slow down. I taught yoga for close on 30 years, and part of the yoga practice is pranayama. So the science of breathing, if you like, is sometimes it's referred to. And if you can observe your breath without intervening, which is extremely difficult actually, because we are such control freaks in some ways that we find that almost impossible to do. But if you can observe your breath without intervening with it, you'll notice that at the end of your out-breath there's a slight pause, and then the breath starts to enter the body and it starts to increase in speed, and then about the mid-breath you've got the full breath coming in, and then at the end of the in-breath again it doesn't just stop, it slows down, pauses at the top of the curve if you like, and the same process happens again. So just like the tides, we have this, the breath pattern forms, the unimpeded and the natural breath pattern forms a, you can liken it to a sine, the wave of a sine curve. And it's the same with the changing day length that we experience here in the north. When we were at the midsummer solstice, which was a few weeks ago, one day either side of the solstice, there is no change in day length, none at all. It's that pause in the natural world. And then imperceptibly, the day starts to shorten as we go past the summer solstice. And it is imperceptible, it's seconds at first. And now, at the equinox, the autumn equinox, the day length is changing at about 3 minutes per day. So over the course of the week, we're looking at 20 minutes of shortening daylight, or shortening time between sunrise and sunset. So this is at sort of, if you like, the peak flow, like the tide. It's at peak flow, like the breath. And we go past Samhain at the end of October, and the change in the day length starts to slow down until we get to the winter solstice. And again, either side of the 21st of December, there's no change in day length. And then once we go past the 22nd and into the 23rd, then the days start to gradually, literally by the second, get lighter as we move back into the next cycle. So sitting here by the shores of Loch Sunart, this is what I see. I see the macrocosm, the larger picture of the day length changing as the planet tips back and forth on its axis. I see the tides changing in that same way, that same pattern in the tides. And I see that same pattern in my breath. And what you might reflect on, if you think back to your childhood and the summer holidays, think how they dragged on into the distance. It seemed like the summer was going to go on forever. And then as you got older and got responsibilities, maybe in your late 30s, mid 40s, if you're there yet, life was so hectic and it was flying past at an enormous rate. And now I reflect on the fact that I'm at the winter of my life. I'm coming up to that winter solstice, that time when I will leave this material, this apparent world, and my remains will just decay or be disposed of when I die. And now I see my life, everything's slowing down, everything's taking longer, everything seems to stretch out. That same pattern of a slow start, a gradual climb, speeding by, and then slowing down before the next cycle begins. So these are my thoughts on the autumn equinox. Hope you found it interesting. If you do, and you'd like to know more, then check out this video. In the meantime, thank you for listening, and I welcome your comments, and may you find balance in your life. Many blessings. Goodbye.